The 190th edition of the Roy's Boys podcast starts right now.
Carolina basketball family is the strongest there's ever been. There ever will be.
Nate Humphrey hands King Rice the ball. Pushes into Hubert Davis. 8 seconds. Davis trying to get free. Over to Fox. Fox, baseline. Up for the shot. Good. Off the glove. Oklahoma calls timeout. But the game is over. The game is over. Carolina has upset number 1 Oklahoma. Been ready on his second attempt. That one is no good. They battle for it. Loose ball. Recovered Marvin. He scores.
With 20 seconds left to play, goes back to Michael Jordan. Jumper from out on the left. Good! 63, 62, 13, 12, 11. Georgetown with one timeout. Brent Brown looking. Throw away to Worthy. 35. The Tar Heels are going to win the national championship. Carolina with foul. He takes the timeout. Technical foul. Technical foul.
Brown gets it into Williams. Here comes Williams front court. Williams on the drive. Gets it back out to head. Long outside shot. Short rebound. It's over. And how about the Tar Heels? They are the national champions.
The Tar Heels are the national daggum champions.
And that's what it takes when you big time games. You got to compete. You do it with your brain, and you got to do it with your heart too. And that's pretty doggone good.
From QCBroadcasting.com, this is the Roy's Boys podcast with your host, Josh Marlowe. Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Roy's Boys podcast. We are powered by Carolina Electrical Services. Today I am joined by Issac Schade from Sports Illustrated. Issac, how's it going today, man?
Hey, Josh, I'm great. How are you?
I'm not too bad. It's March, so it's my favorite time of the year as a lover of college basketball as we're getting closer to conference tournaments and the NCAA tournament, which hopefully Carolina will find themselves playing in. And let's just dive right in and talk about this Tar Heel team, Issac. A lot has happened since I last talked to you back, I believe, in January, early February. Can you help me make sense of their season so far?
No, I can't. No, yeah, I mean, goodness, it really is one of the craziest things in memory. They're just so up and down, and you can't predict what's going to happen from one game to the next, you know? So I'll give it my best go of it. I honestly, I don't think it's actually all that complicated. I think what we're seeing is the result of two things. I would say COVID and youth. I think in any year, youth is difficult, but then around January, February, you know, the proverbial thing that they start to become sophomores at that point. But just with the delay in preparation for the year, I think the youth has stayed young. And it's not just with the Tar Heels. We're seeing this trend, I would say, around the country that the best teams are veteran-laden teams who are returning a nucleus of guys who know how to play together.
Right.
But then teams relying on newcomers, whether it's, in Carolina's case, freshmen, or in some schools' case, transfers as well, they're not going to be as consistently successful. That's just the reality of this year. And so that leads to some games like Louisville or the second half against Florida State, where we see what the Tar Heels could be at their peak, but then you'll have games like Marquette or Syracuse that are just like, oh, we are still a bunch of freshmen trying to figure this out.
Right. When we talked the first time, there was a lot of talk about Armando Bacot, who at the time was leading Carolina in scoring despite only getting 7 shots per game. He flashed forward to March. He's still Carolina's leading scorer, but he hasn't played at a consistent level. How much of the incident following the Duke win where he got caught on camera partying without a mask on that resulted in a game against Miami being canceled, how much of that incident affect his season moving forward, do you think?
Honestly, I think that has really probably had a bigger effect on his personal life than his play.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, gosh, these guys have been under a microscope for so much of their lives. And incidents like that, I think, just remind him and the rest of the team, because as we found out later, it wasn't just he and Dayron. It was several of them.
Right.
that I think, if anything, it makes him insulate himself more, unfortunately, of like, oh, man, I can't just trust people around me because of things like this that happen. And so I think, I hope not, but I fear that what it does is makes him more cynical about the world around him and, congregating with the general populace of the campus.
In
terms of his play, I think it might have affected some things. There's been, I believe it's 6 games since that last Duke win.
Right.
And obviously this most recent game against Syracuse, he had a huge game. Arguably best game of the season for him. But even in the ones before that, his inconsistency, I think, really is more just attributed to the circumstances of the game than what happened coming out of the video. So right after Duke was Virginia. Well, we know how that went. Nobody scored in double figures. Northeastern, the team was trying a bunch of different stuff. 9 different players had double digits, and yet he still had 9 points and 8 rebounds, like a solid effort. Against Louisville, he had 14 and 9 in like 18 minutes. And then Marquette and Florida State, a lot of that dealt with foul trouble. Like with Marquette, he had a foul like 12 seconds into the game.
Yeah.
And picked up third foul right at the beginning of the second half. And so he was out of rhythm, I think, in both those. So I think it's just been circumstantial that it's tended to line up with what happened in that video, honestly.
You go back to that win over Duke, and Caleb Love was sensational. He put on a rather historic performance in Cameron. I first want your impressions of that game back in February, and then give me some reasons why he hasn't been able to replicate that same level of play since.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're spot on, Josh. What a performance from Mr. Caleb Love against Duke. Man, like, can you imagine thinking of your first game at Cameron Indoor Stadium and doing that? Like, wow, what a debut for him. Most threes he's hit all year. That contributes to the 25 points in a big way. At that point, it was his career high in assists. But then the inconsistency that followed is a progression of the team. Mm-hmm. As we well know, as Tar Heels fans, so the point guard goes, so the rest of the team goes on a Roy Williams team. We've said it over and over. Playing point guard for Roy Williams has to be one of the most 5 difficult roles in all of college basketball.
Right.
And so a freshman in that role is going to take a huge step forward from time to time, a talented freshman anyway, like he did at Duke, and then is going to take a couple steps back. Additionally, since that game, I heard an interview with him in which he was saying, you guys got to remember, I'm still learning how to be a point guard. I've been a ball-dominant scoring guard my entire basketball career,
right.
And now I'm trying to figure out how to get everyone else involved too. So I think that's part of it. There are positives, though. He's had multiple assists in every game since that Duke game. Sure, that's tied in with more turnovers than we would like, but so he's not experiencing anything Kobe White or Cole Anthony didn't go through. I think I said this last time we talked, but just a good reminder for all of us is that he does not have a veteran behind him, like a Seventh Woods or a Nate Britt or some of those other guys we've seen come off the bench. He's got Kendall Marshall, sure, but there's no on-court help for him. If Caleb Love is struggling, who does Coach Williams turn to?
R.J. Davis, yep.
Freshman. Yeah, exactly. And so I just think it's a product of again, the circumstances around him. So, I'm really hoping he stays for another year. I think a sophomore Caleb Love with a sophomore R.J. Davis would be something good to see. Now, I also have hope for Saturday because there's something about performing well against the same team consistently. We've seen that recently with Buddy Boeheim against the Tar Heels, right? And so I wouldn't be surprised if Love has a pretty big game Saturday night.
Another player that has had some recent struggles is sharpshooter Kerwin Walton. After being named ACC Freshman of the Week a couple weeks ago, his name, as you could expect, started showing up in more scouting reports, and teams are taking him off the three-point line. After going 0 of 7 against Syracuse, what do you think has led to his dip in perimeter shooting?
And I would say it's just the natural regression of things. He's been up around 45%, and really the best three-point shooters should be shooting enough to where they round out to about the low 40s. So if you're sitting way above low 40s, I would say you're not shooting enough. So my observation is that in the past 2 or 3 games, he's been hunting his shot a little more. You can notice, like I saw this both at Syracuse and against Florida State, he was pulling the trigger early and often.
Mm-hmm.
You get the suggestion of the coaching staff. It could be he's just getting more confident, and his teammates are wanting him to shoot more. But yeah, I mean, like you said, he's only 5 for 24 over the last 3 games. So this regression it's a natural thing. We've been insanely spoiled with how consistent he's been.
Yeah.
Before the Syracuse over, he had 9 straight games with multiple three-pointers that he made, and then 15 straight games in which he had made at least one. I mean, that is a freshman we were expecting to barely contribute. This is not Kenny Williams, who hit 1 three-pointer his entire freshman year. So the encouraging thing to me, though, to flip the corner on it a little bit, is that he's still shooting. And not only is he still shooting, but even with this regression, he's still up above 40%.
Yeah.
So just to put it in context, that is unprecedented. No freshman in the Roy Williams era has attempted 50 three-pointers and made 40% or more for the entire season. He's still above that.
Walker Kessler went from being an afterthought to a big part of the Tar Heels' success, even though it's been uneven since he kind of became a part of the rotation. First off, did you see this progression happening during the season? And then what excites you about Walker Kessler moving forward?
No. To your first question, yeah. I really didn't see this coming. There's so much to be excited about, which you asked about. We'll talk about that in a second. But I thought this year we'd probably see some nice contributions from time to time, see some glimpses of what he can do, maybe some spot minutes when Brooks or Baycott get in foul trouble. Very similar to like Tyler Zeller, his freshman year, playing behind Deion Thompson and Tyler Hansborough. It's just there's not really a path to a lot of playing time.
Right.
And so what we've seen these last 4 or 5 games has just blown me away. Yeah, I did not expect it at all. Obviously, he came back down to earth a little bit against Syracuse, but had 4 straight games of double digits, and obviously the Herculean effort against Florida State in the second half. That was something.
Yeah.
Wow. So what excites me most about him, I love that he just puts his head down and goes to work. He's clearly very coachable. To hear him talk, he just says yes, sir, and goes on with whatever he's asked to do. So he's something of a unicorn, this blend of talent. I don't remember many other people that we've seen do what he's able to do. He's got this motor that just goes and goes and goes. He's got a willingness to do anything to help his team. I wish I had gone through and counted the number of times he's unfolded that lanky frame down onto the floor to go after a loose ball. Like, he's got a willingness to do that. He's efficient inside. But it's not just the dunks. He had this great kind of drop-step baby hook against Florida State on the baseline. So he's got that touch. He's got rim protection. We've been absent essentially since Bryce Johnson. You don't just get 4 blocks against Florida State by accident.
Yeah.
Like, when you're going against that kind of length and athleticism that Florida State rolls at you in waves year after year, if you get 4 blocks against that, you're doing something special. And then the last thing I would say is shooting. Obviously, we've not seen as much of that this year. But we know that that's in his arsenal, and hopefully, assuming he comes back next year, I think we'll start to see more of that shooting.
Let's talk about my man, Roy Williams, right now. He won his 900th game against Florida State last Saturday. And in the last 2 seasons, he's achieved some historic milestones, passing his mentor, Dean Smith, winning 900 games, and has the chance to pass Bob Knight this season. Do those achievements carry any less values than normal because the program isn't among the nation's elite? And on a 2-part question, is there any way possible Roy Williams is underappreciated?
I would say, if anything, the milestones achieved last year and this year, passing Coach Smith and getting to 900 wins, I think they carry more value, carry more weight, because it reminds you of just how good a coach he is. So, I mean, anyone is going to have